welcome back to the Entertainment Vortex. Today we are at Brennan Theaters watching Assassination Nation. And of course, if you enjoyed the review, don't forget to subscribe to see more reviews and videos like this every single week. So this movie is a very interesting movie. What I mean by that is we're going to have to split this review into two sections. So the beginning of this review is going to be spoiler-free. We're not going to ruin anything for you. If you're someone that wants to go into this blind and just want to know the generalizations of this movie, then this beginning of this will be good, and we'll make sure you know 100% when we're going to go spoiler. So for the spoiler-free section, we say this is a very duality type movie. It's almost split into two acts, and each act is very, very different. This is a horror movie at its core, in my opinion. You have gore, you have suspense, you have that feeling of uneasiness, you have that fight or flight response that kicks in the adrenaline that everybody loves. You have a lot of that in this film. Right in the first minute of the film, they say, hey, these are the trigger warnings in this movie, and then they go to list like 30 things off. Because this is not going to pull punches. This movie is going to show you exactly what it wants to show you, whether you like it or not. And there are a lot of scenes that you're probably not going to enjoy watching what they're going to show you. So let's talk about the first half of the movie, where they're building up the story, where they're building up these characters, and they're trying to make their point, which if you've seen the trailer, you will know very quickly is about people getting hacked and people's reaction to people getting hacked. The idea that the entire nation goes to assassinate one person's character at a time. They do a good job at the beginning of the movie. While I do feel the pacing's a little off and they do stretch out some parties and stuff like that they don't necessarily need to, they do a good job of establishing who these people are, what their lifestyle is at this high school. They do a good job of establishing what their point is. They have some amazing conversations between the principal and the main character and her parents that are really poignant, well-spoken, make some excellent points about modern society. Then you get to Act 2. This movie just kind of turns everything up to 11 out of nowhere. You're kind of getting into the story, you're getting into the concepts, you're going, wow, this is actually pretty intelligent, even though some of the stuff isn't that interesting. It's actually pretty intelligent, their point is well made. Then people just start killing everybody. You're left going, what in the world just happened? We took a huge left turn. You know the violence is coming if you've seen the trailer, because the trailer is very clear about the whole 4 girls in matching outfits thing. But it's not what you think. So if you would like to know more about that, stay tuned until later when we go into the spoiler section. But it's not what you think.
So when it came to this film, I took the opposite approach. I avoided the trailer. I saw that there were some decent reviews for it, but I didn't read them. I wanted to go into this as blind as humanly possible in order to kind of preserve my cinema-going experience for this one. Being someone who went into this completely blind, it was incredibly shocking and visceral, to say the least. As far as the story that they chose to tell and the way that they told that story, I feel like they're two completely different things, and for me that's unfortunate. They took great points and a story that needed to be told, and they told it poorly and made it uninteresting in certain ways and just really icky feeling in a lot of other ways. I understand, with the subject matter that we're working with, it's inherently gross. You should feel gross about this. That even if this is turned up to the most ridiculous degree, that these feelings and things that are going on in this film are larger-than-life caricatures of what really goes on in our society up to an extent. That's disgusting. You should feel disgusting about that. There's nothing wrong with that, and the points that they make throughout the movie, in certain places, are well made and need to be put on film, need to be put in front of people's eyes, and need to be shown to people. The acting performances, I felt for the majority of it, were pretty stellar. There were some really emotional scenes and emotional responses to those scenes that were just interesting, and they were really striking, and the acting performances themselves, I'm not certain who a lot of these actors are. Most of the people, aside from Joel McHale, aren't very big names. But their performances were pretty great. The problem lies in kind of a weird pace as far as the screenplay is concerned. It does feel like they kind of mishmashed two different ideas. You can see the stitch marks. You can see where they tried to stitch those things together, and it doesn't. One part pulls away, one part rejects the other, and that's unfortunate because the beginning parts of this movie set up some really great things, and it opens a really great dialogue that I think a lot of people in our society at this point need to hear.
This movie is kind of a mindfuck. You start out with this really interesting idea idea. You start out with this interesting political commentary, and it actually shocked me by how it presented it in certain scenes. But man, it doesn't go where I thought it was going to go. It gets to a point where this is the movie equivalent of a shock jock. It felt like they were doing things to the extreme for the sake of doing things to the extreme. We're going to show you this scene because this scene is super edgy. We're going to show you this event because this event is going to make you feel really uncomfortable. Well, we could have made the point without it. We could have made the point really well and even better without it. But we really want to make the person squirm in their seat as they watch this movie. I really don't think that's necessary. I also find that during the course of this movie, when it starts to ramp up towards the middle, they start repeating themselves unnecessarily. They'll make a point, they'll reveal something, and then another scene will happen to reveal it again. And I don't understand why they continue to repeat themselves. So I think my number one complaint with this movie, it was squandered potential. So on one side, you have this pulp movie concept that they show in the trailer. The 4 girls with the samurai swords going to defend themselves. You have that concept. On the other side, you have this deep political commentary about media in our current culture. They don't mix at all. They don't take either one of them to a conclusion, in my opinion. You kind of get half of each. The ending is unsatisfying because of it. I was just left going, I sat through this for that. That was where you left me. So if you're the type of person that's like me, does not like horror movies, that when they feel the fight or flight response, they don't stay to enjoy it, they flight, this is not your movie. This is going to make you feel extremely uncomfortable. And I don't feel there's a payoff for it. There were multiple times during the movie, 2 in specific, that I almost walked out. I got to the point where it was my breaking point and I had to leave, and the only reason I stayed to see this movie out is because I knew I needed to review it. I needed to make sure I saw the entire movie or I wasn't going to be able to give a fair critique. So I think the strongest thing I can say, squandered potential, and I almost walked out. So this is your warning. This is when we're going to start talking spoilers. So if you're interested in seeing this movie blind and not having it ruined for you, I hope you enjoyed our review up to this point, but this is where I would click away. Please subscribe though if you haven't already. So spoiler territory. This movie does some things that really piss me off. So I'm going to be completely honest. So at the beginning of the movie, you have her and the principal, you have her and her parents talking about perception, talking about the idea of an image isn't sexualized until someone makes it sexualized. You have the idea of there's a time and a place for everything, with the principal saying that you just have to censor yourself for the time being, that your talent will be found. You have these amazing concepts. You even have some amazing dialogue surrounding the first time someone gets hacked. And then the second time someone gets hacked, the principal. You have interesting concepts with the one killing themselves and the other one just standing up for his rights and everybody just mob mentality on him. All of that was very well done. Then you have scenes that don't make a lot of sense to me. So this movie, they advertise it as if it's a pulp movie. So you're going to have the 4 girls in the matching outfits with the swords and the guns going to get revenge, all Kill Bill style. And you feel like it's going to be that pulp movie, like you're building up to that point. You have this thick political commentary at the beginning. Then you start getting into the violence and the horror aspects. Then you get further into it and you get to the point where they're all armed, they're back together, they're ready to go, movie ends. Why would you advertise it that way? Why would you advertise it as a revenge film with these 4 girls in the pulp movie style if that's literally where you're going to end your movie? It's almost a cop-out in my opinion. Almost false advertising. So I expected to see a pulp-style film with a lot of violence, probably some gore. It was classified as action suspense, but what I ended up getting was half political movie, or half political commentary movie, half political commentary movie, and half horror movie, I guess? I mean, you've got the whole middle part of the movie where they're in the house and they're kind of filming from outside the house while the attack is starting, and it drags that scene out to the point where maximum tension's already been achieved and you're still going. Then they kill the mom, and then you're still going, and then they're chasing people around the yard, and I'm like, this is just too much. You've made your point. You've gotten your tension. You've gotten your horror aspect, you've gotten the scary, the screaming, the kill in the pool, all that stuff. But yet that scene is twice as long as it needs to be and breaks, in my opinion, it breaks the pacing. That is kind of when the movie goes like this, in my opinion. You go from having this really smart point with these built characters to just being mindless violence. So my question for you, try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible in the comment section down below for the people that aren't in the spoiler territory of this. Do you feel that they turned this up to 11 on purpose? That this movie at the midpoint was exaggerated on purpose? Or do you feel that the filmmaker believes that in a microcosm, in a single city, everyone's information was to get sent out? Instead of everybody coming down to the same level, they would all rise to the same level of righteousness and then become violent. I'm curious if this was supposed to be pulp, like we're just gonna go crazy with it and have fun with it, or if this was supposed to be taken seriously. Because the level of violence and the swap these characters take, like that, really bothered me.
There's a lot of great points to pull from this film. There are a lot of points about expectations of people, regardless of their gender, their sexuality, what have you. And those things ring true. Those things, dialogue and the scripting for those things are beautifully put in almost every instance. Those are going to be the parts that I will take away from this movie, is the parts that shine. They are beautifully acted, beautifully written, and I definitely appreciate them. The problem is that you hit that midway point. It goes from socially unsettling to viscerally unsettling. They could have done a better job of mixing the two and making it something that has a point. But once you get to that viscerally unsettling stuff, it doesn't have the same punch anymore. They got rid of all of the social commentary that goes with it, that makes this movie work, that makes it tick, and just pushed it off to the side and said, okay, so here's unnecessary gore, here's unnecessary further boundary pushing, when they've already shown some of the ridiculous things that people do in these situations. The concept itself is inherently interesting. The fact that the majority of the people in this small town have had all of their dirty laundry aired, all the things that they've ever said on the internet, all the things that they've searched for, all the things that they've said to other people, the photos that they've sent to each other, and their reaction to it. Even if you do decide to go into that hyper-violent territory, there needs to be that connection to the beginning part of the story. And I feel like there are some scenes where they tried more than others, and those scenes worked a little better than the others did, but there's a disconnect. And it just seems like they made a point to make every single character who wasn't the main people you were following turn up to 11 of ridiculousness as far as their thinking is concerned. And it's not something that I would say is the best use of that. The twist that's supposed to come from this story of it being the brother the whole time and all of the disgusting things that basically went on because of his actions is completely stepped on and completely visible from early points of the movie. You have every single person in this town nervous, worried about the things that are going to be released about them if they are the one that's hacked next. Except for this kid who's, sipping on a big gulp. It's like, you've got everybody with this heavy tension, and then you've got this one guy who just looks like he doesn't fit. It's like, obviously, that's the guy. Like I said, there's a lot of poignant moments. Specifically, the speech that Lily gives at the end of the movie, I feel like it has so many great points and so much empowerment for people who have been ostracized by society, even in small, inescapable ways that it seems. And I feel like the things that she said are true. It's difficult to be an outlier from what's considered to be the pinnacle of society and not feel like you're being ordered around, like you're being told to do this, told to do that, and there are all these things that constantly butt up against each other and they don't click. They don't mesh. You're being told one thing and being told another thing, and those two things are completely separate from each other. You can only do one or the other. You can't do both, but they want you to be both, and that's unfortunate that there are these expectations put on people in society. But it's just the lead up to it. Like I said, from that halfway point to her speech, those two things don't seem like they match, and that's unfortunate. Like I said, there's a lot of different things they could have done to potentially make this movie better. They could have tried to pace things a little bit better and ramp up a little more slowly to that climax. It would have made their point better for it, would have made it stronger for it, would have made it something more watchable for it. I don't mind being uncomfortable. I love horror movies. They're some of my favorite genre of the entire scape of film. But to me, this wasn't necessarily horror. It was just making people uncomfortable for the sake of making people uncomfortable.
I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 10. The reason I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 is because I enjoyed half the movie. Half the movie was interesting. The first half of the movie. The second half of the movie just frustrated me. It put me in situations I didn't want to be in. It made me watch and feel things I didn't want to feel, and I felt there was no point putting me through those. This wasn't a Schindler's List, where you're put into incredibly uncomfortable situations to learn a lesson. I had already learned the lesson before those moments happened. So, I feel like I was literally tortured for no reason.
I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10. I know that there's a lot of value in this movie, and there are a lot of things that work out really well, and the actors worked really hard to make this as believable as possible for as ridiculous as the concept is. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it made a great movie. The parts were better than the sum, and that's unfortunate.
If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We give you multiple videos every single week. And we have t-shirts available if you're interested in those as well. Those are available down in the description below. We hope you'll follow us into the Vortex. We'll see you next time.